Welcome to the online community of the Healing Place. This is Scott Etheridge, lead pastor, and I want to welcome you to this special broadcast. Today you'll be listening to a sermon from a Wednesday night by our media pastor, Dallas Mora, talking about what's in your heart. So we hope you enjoy it today, and God bless you.
If you have a Bible, go ahead and go to Proverbs chapter 21. Proverbs 21, verse 2. That's where our text is for today for the most part. I want to talk to you today, something the Lord put on my heart. It's a question. The question is, what's in your heart? What's inside here? I'm going to read this passage, Proverbs 21, verse 2. It says this: every way of a man is right in his own eyes, but the Lord weighs the hearts. God, I pray right now, Lord, as Pastor said, the preparation, everything, it seems right. But Lord, I pray that you examine my heart, you examine the hearts of everyone here, Lord, as we go into this, as we dive into this passage and uncover what you have for us tonight, Lord. I pray that you speak to us prophetically, God. God, that you not only do, Lord, a change in us intellectually, but spiritually, God, you do something in our lives as we unpack what this word is for us today, Lord. Amen. So here's a question. What is the most awkward moments in church? What are those most awkward moments that take place in church? It's not when the media team messes up and puts the wrong slide on the screen, or the video guy forgets to put audio in a video. That's never happened here before. It's not when the worship team maybe accidentally misses a note or skips a song. It's not even when the pastor says the wrong word. Oftentimes, what I've noticed, some of the most awkward moments that take place in a church are when it comes time for prayer. I'm not even talking about the times when you got the non-Pentecostal show up for a Pentecostal meeting for the first time. That's awkward for them. I've been there before. I remember the first time I was a little kid. I wasn't even saved yet. Mom took me to this little bitty Assembly of God church in Missouri. And it was like they're having a prayer meeting. We're sitting there, they begin to pray, and I'm already uncomfortable because I don't know how to pray. I don't know how to do all this stuff, so I'm just bowing my head because that's just what I saw everybody doing. All of a sudden I hear people starting to murmur around the room. Got a lady over here saying something weird, Shandai Shakamahaya. Lady in the back of the room spelling Eddie, E-D-I-E, E-D-I-E. Oh, we have a spelling test back here? I'm not really sure what's happening. I felt crunchy. I looked at my mom. I was like, what is happening? She says, the moving of the Spirit. I'm like, I don't know what that means. And that's awkward enough. But what's really awkward is when you ask people in small groups to pray. Now, I deal a lot with stereotypes. This is the nature of what I do and how I do things. I have to look at stereotypes and compact them and understand it. I make graphics for the church, so I have to think, okay, this type of person is going to see this type of person is going to say that. And so we build things around what we try to think, what we think people will say and do. And so, because I do that, I see there's three basic stereotypes of people when it comes time for the prayer time in services or in small groups. And the first off is, there are people that just got to go. They got locked down. You go, hey, we need somebody to pray. I got this. Boom. They're praying. They're laying all out. It's great. It's fantastic. Very chilled. Very comfortable. There's a conversational aspect to their prayers. But then you got these two extremes that take place. Two extremes that no matter where I go, I see them in every group. The first one, I'm going to call it Theo the Theologian. This is the cat that doesn't have a 6th grade reading level, but suddenly it comes time to pray and he has a PhD in theology. All right, you guys have seen him. He gets up and goes, oh, heavenly, gracious Father in the heavenly places, we thank you for the exegetical word that you brought upon us in the pneumatology. What are you saying, man? Are you speaking in tongues again? Just saying big words. Now again, some people are just like that. But these are people who, they're doing it to be impressive. They're bringing out this vocabulary and they're hyping themselves up as just someone who's, I am the authority in the room. Watch me pray. Right? The next stereotype that I like to lay out is what I call Stanley the Stumbler. This cat is just trying to figure out what to say. He's sitting there, he's like, oh, Lord. And they got the pause. We've all done it. We're up in there, we're just going, in the back of our mind going, what was that person's name again? But Stanley the Stumbler, it's more than just that. There's an aspect to his life where when he comes time for prayer, he's not just trying to seek the Lord, but there's something going on the inside that he's struggling with. And those two extremes are what we're going to be discussing today as we unpack this word of Proverbs 21:2. So if it's okay, I'd like to start with Theo, the theologian. In Matthew chapter 5, starting verse 21, Jesus is explaining to his followers how to be a proper follower of Jesus. He's trying to lay out life and how to respond to people and how to do certain things. And he gets down to verse 5 of chapter 6 and it says this: whenever you pray, you must not pray like the hypocrites, because they love to pray standing in the synagogues and on the street corners to be seen by people. I assure you, they've got their reward. Now, some people have taken this passage and they have sadly mistaken it to mean that, oh, I shouldn't be praying out loud. They have this mentality that they shouldn't be out there and speaking and proclaiming God's word when they're out and about around people. And some have even used an excuse not to be really moving in the spirit. But that's not what he's saying here. You see, culturally what has happened is you had people who would stand outside the temple at the time of prayer when they were supposed to pray, and they're using big words, they're making proclamations, they're going, Lord, look at me! They're doing all these things to draw the people's attention, not to draw people to go, hey, here's God, but to go, look at me. Look how great and spiritual I am. So again, when we get here, he's not shunning outward public prayers, but in context, he's telling his disciples to check their motives. So when it comes time for you to pray, check this right here. Why are you praying? What are you praying over? We've all been in those weird prayer meetings where somebody's sitting there praying, and all of a sudden they just start, Lord, I pray for Miss Vivian because, she was doing wrong things last week, and they start airing out everybody's dirty laundry in prayer. You're like, whoa. This is not a gossip prayer, guys. Their motives aren't right. What is our motives for prayer? Our motives in prayer should be to connect with the heart of the Father. If we're interceding for somebody, it's to go, this is your problem. Let me plug you into the source that can fix it. It's knowing what to carry and when to drop off at the Lord's altar. But Theo, the theologian, he doesn't care about all that. Thieves are those who make a spectacle out of their relationship with God. And the sad part is they believe God is honoring the spectacle. They are living out the first half of Proverbs 21:2. Every way of a man is right in his own eyes. But they do not understand the second half. They aren't walking with the sober reminder that the Lord is watching them. So that brings us now to Stanley, the Stumbler. I love Stanley. He's a good guy. Because oftentimes what I find with Stanley is he's just trying so hard to connect to the Father. But he's just not sure how. The second extreme, this poor guy here, he looks at the second half of that verse, and it's all he can think about. But the Lord weighs the hearts. They dwell on this while it should be so much that it shouldn't be so. They are so consumed by the fact that the Lord is weighing their hearts that they find themselves in bondage that the Father never meant for them to have. And I understand this. I myself have found myself being Stanley the Stumbler at times because I'm going, God, I don't want to say the wrong thing. I don't want to say something wrong and all of a sudden set the whole church on fire and people are leaving left and right and all of a sudden it's the downfall of Christianity and everybody goes, what happens? Well, Dal said the wrong thing. I'm not joking. That weighs me. I was talking with some friends of mine a few weeks ago, and we're talking about the word and preparation and sharing. I said, guys, one of the hardest things for me about sharing the word is I scour and look over what I say because I don't want to say the wrong thing. I remember many years ago I had I was in one of my theology classes at Sagu, and it was campus days. We had somebody come in, and this young man felt it was appropriate for him to stand up and correct my theology teacher on his theology. Okay, I get that. Sweet. There's some things that are negotiable. But what he was doing was like, well, actually, Dr. Rosedal, in the Greek it says, or in the Hebrew it says this, and this. And Dr. Rosedal goes, that's great, son. But that was written in Greek, in Aramaic, not Hebrew necessarily. And what you said right there wasn't quite the right word. It's actually this word. And the kid's going, oh. And sits down awkwardly. And you saw this poor kid, and his life was shattered in this poor moment. He actually got up and walked out of class. And I remember that day I would go, man, I never want to be the pastor that says something and teach something so passionately and be so wrong that it destroys somebody when they find out the truth. And so the weight to the fact that the Lord weighs my heart, and then my heart, and he examines everything I say and do. It has burdened me at times in preparation for sharing God's word, for loving on people. And this happens in a lot of people when it comes time for prayer because they're going, I don't want to say the wrong thing. And sometimes there's different reasons. Sometimes it's a response to the abuses of grace. They've seen too many people who have just gone out and they've blown it. They've done things like, well, it's under grace. It's okay. God excuse whatever I do. Guys, you can't swing that far. At the same time, sometimes it's a response to an inaccurate view of the relationship to the Father. They have this view of a father being this over-demanding person who's just ready to zap them at any moment, when that's not true at all. Romans chapter 8 verse 15 says this, for you did not receive the spirit of slavery to fall again into fear. Rather, you received the spirit of adoption, by whom we cry, Abba, Father. So when Stanley is faced with prayer and he's beginning to wonder, man, I don't want to say the wrong thing. And again, this isn't everybody. This is just not everybody, but sometimes there's this fear that comes over. What if I say the wrong thing? Everyone in the room is so much more theologically sound than I. This person's been praying in the altars for 20 years. This person holds this position. This person is that. This person teaches Christian ed. This person's got a Bible big enough to choke a moose. What do I have? And so they stumble over their words. And so there's this pendulum swing back and forth between Theo and Stanley, questioning. I myself have found myself in places going, what am I doing? I've been in those situations where I've pumped myself up, become a Theo for a few minutes. And then the Lord checks me and I go, whoa. Suddenly I become Stanley. It took a long time for me to figure out the balance in that. To understand there is a balance in our prayer life and our walk with God. You're not always going to be the head honcho guy who's going to be taking charge. But you don't need to live in fear that the Lord's just there to judge you every moment of the day. Because as a proper father, he goes, hey, you messed up. Let's walk you through this. Or when you do good, he goes, hey, that was awesome. That was fantastic. I'm so proud of you. And when we realize that because he is our Father, our motives begin to change and we go, I'm just here to do and say what my Father wants me to do and say. It changes things. The atmospheres change. Today I had the opportunity to sit in on a funeral for a man of God who has served in the Assemblies of God Fellowship for many years. He's served the city for many years. He's done all these things. And, sometimes when you go to a funeral of a public person, people get up and they say things and you go, okay, you just don't want to speak ill of the dead. I get that. That's nice. Whitewash that mess right there. But every person who got up and spoke today at this funeral, there was a genuine love. Everything they spoke wasn't an exaggeration. Everything they spoke was the truth. And they said over and over, he just loved people. and he just loved his God. And because he loved his God, his love for people grew, and he was able to pour out more, and he did more. His motives were pure. Then the Father weighed him, and he did more and more and more. And left me challenged this morning. Where's my heart at? What's my motivations for praying? What's my motivations for doing what God's called me to do? So let me ask them, what is motivating you to pray and to do what God called you to do? What's in your heart? At the same time, what's stopping you? When you get this I've seen it. Everybody comes back from youth camp. Woo, exciting. They come back from women's encounter. Yes, we're going to pray. I'm going to do all these things. Men's retreat. Great Sunday morning service. We're walking out of here. We're speaking in tongues and we're doing all kinds of things. And you're like, I'm going to go to IHOP. I'm going to lay hand on my waitress. I'm going to be like, Shandai. All right. And then somebody's going to have to come lay hands on you because you've lost your mind somewhere between here and your car. I'm not sure what happens. So why do we stop midstream? I want to tell you guys a story. There was this kid named Johnny. He was a very, very bright 5-year-old. And he told his dad he'd like to have a baby brother. And along with his request, offered to do whatever he could do to help. His dad, being very bright 35-year-old, paused for a moment and replied, I'll tell you what, Johnny. If you pray every day for 2 months for a baby brother, I guarantee God will give you a baby brother. Johnny responded eagerly to his dad's challenge, and he went to his bedroom early that night and started praying for a baby brother. He prayed every night for a whole month. But after that time, he began to get skeptical. He checked around the neighborhood and found out what he thought was going to happen had never occurred in the history of the neighborhood. Nobody had ever prayed in a baby brother. So Johnny quit praying. After another month, Johnny's mother went to the hospital and she came back home. And when she came back home, Johnny's parents called him into the bedroom. He cautiously walked into the room, not expecting to find anything. And there was a little bundle lying right next to his mother. His dad pulled back the blanket and there was not just one baby brother, but 2. His mother had twins. Johnny's dad looked at him and said, now, aren't you glad you prayed? Johnny hesitated a little and then looked up at his dad and said, yes, but aren't you glad I quit when I did? Now, obviously in the story, this young man was motivated to pray because he was told by his father that he'd get something that he wanted. There was a motivation there. He goes, I just want a baby brother. Pray, brother, come on. But as he went along, he allowed doubt to sink in. Now the story, everything ended up well for Johnny. I don't know about Johnny's parents, but everything ended up well for Johnny. But why have some of us stopped praying? What has changed about the initial motivations of your prayer life? The initial motivations of your walk with God? A couple years ago, I was cleaning out some old boxes of mine. I found a old Bible case that I had and opened it up, and there was a tag inside it was my ID tag from Youth for the Nations, our youth camp we used to go to. And so this is probably 2002. And I believe it was More Than Conqueror was the name of that camp. I picked it up. I was like, oh, this is cool. And I flipped over to the back. On the back, there was a big number 3. I'm like, man, what is that number 3? I'm trying to rack my brain for about a week and a half. Why is there a number 3 on the back of this tag? I wrote that number 3. I'm trying to remember what it was. And then it hit me. One night I was laying in bed and it just struck me. See, that one of the last services that we had there, the guy was preaching. I remember his name. He goes, I want you to take your tag. On the back of it, I want you to write down the number of people you want to see get saved through you personally this year. And I want you to pray for that number of people all year long. And I was like, and then I stopped. Because I realized I had stopped. That year I stopped praying for those people. I stopped praying for 3 souls to come into the kingdom. I don't know why I did it. I was like 17, 16. I had every excuse I could give. But in that moment, every excuse just seemed to fall on the floor as I began to cry. God, I stopped praying for 3 people. 3 people that could be in the kingdom. Why did I stop, Lord? What changed my motivation? So here's what I have for you guys. Have you forgotten that the Lord weighs your heart and you need Him to do a work in your heart? Are you living in fear and need Him to remind you who you are? That you don't have to live in fear because He's a good Father. And have you stopped praying for something or someone or a situation and you need God to rekindle that motivation? Not because of anything that I've said today, not because it just, your wife is kneeing you, elbowing you, go, you remember this? Not because you realize you're in a room full of people who are all prayers and you really feel crunchy. I've been there. Staff meeting is real rough for me sometimes. See, being our staff meetings, I feel crunchy sometimes because I look at Pastor Scott and Pastor Matt and I realize that they are giants in the faith to me. That's how I see them. Dana comes in and she's like, 3 words. I'm like, I'm done. But then I find motivation. So what we're going to do is I'm going to ask Eric to put on some music. I want you guys to get into some small groups and everyone pray. Wherever you're at, maybe you need some rekindling. Maybe you need God to humble you. Maybe you need something to motivate you. And please do not leave until you've done that. Don't run away from the crunchiness, because if you get through it, there will be motivation for you to be better, for you to do what God's called you to do. Maybe you had a 3 that you were praying for, you forgot about. Maybe there's a situation in your life where you felt like you're going to be the big dog and you're going to take everything by charge and you hurt people in the process. Maybe you've been struggling with fear and you've been afraid to act on what God's called you to do, and you just need God to heal you and re-encourage you. That's what I want you to do in your groups. So find groups 4 to 5. Eric's going to play some music and we're going to pray.
Thank you so much for taking time to listen to this message from our Wednesday night services. For more information about the Healing Place, please visit our website, www.thpshreveport.com. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram by simply looking for THP Shreveport. Our desire is for people to be who God created them to be, to know what God is saying, and to do what He says. If we can pray for you in any way, feel free to contact us via social media or by sending an email to mediahub@thpshreveport.com. Thank you for being part of the online community of The Healing Place.